Kim Jong-un has said in his New Year's speech that war is inevitable. That is not unsurprising coming from Kim Jong-un, who is what one would describe slightly cynically as a classic tin pot dictator. I'm Hamish de Bretton-Gordon, a former British Army officer, commander of the Royal Tank Regiment, and also commander of the UK and NATO chemical, biological and nuclear defence forces. Kim Jong-un has made a number of pledges in his New Year's speech to ramp up his military capability. Firstly, he said he's going to put 3 new spy satellites in space to give him better intelligence and surveillance capabilities. He said he's going to ramp up development of nuclear material for his burgeoning nuclear weapon capability. He's also said he's going to develop attack drones. And finally, although he hasn't said it, it's widely known that he has a very large and very unpleasant chemical weapons program, which he could use as well. Kim Jong-un has been threatening nuclear attack for some time. Those of us who've been looking at it very closely, he may have an atomic bomb, which is very different from a hydrogen bomb or the sort of nuclear capabilities that the US and the UK have. He has missiles to put these nuclear weapons on. In total, he probably has about 30 nuclear devices, but at the moment doesn't have the ability to actually put them on a missile. And on the chemical weapons side, one has known for some time he has a vast quantity of what VX, which is a very deadly nerve agent, thought to have about 5,000 tons, which again is an incredibly large amount. He ordered the killing of a relation of his, Kim Jong-nam, in Kuala Lumpur a couple of years ago using the deadly nerve agent VX. And actually, to me, that chemical weapons program of his is probably far more dangerous and more usable at the moment than the nuclear one is. But putting it all together, I think the possibility that Kim Jong-un could annihilate the US military and the South Korean military is pure fantasy. I mean, there's so many miles apart. The first time I expect that the North Koreans tried to fire some sort of missile aggressively at the US, they would get so much back in return. The North Korean military would evaporate long before the US or South Korean. His so-called prized nuclear weapons and drones and others are really, a very, very small capability that would be completely overwhelmed by the US if the US decided that they had to do something about North Korea. We know quite a lot about the full scale of North Korea's military capabilities. We've already discussed the sort of nuclear capability and perhaps some of the others. Its conventional force is very, very large. I mean, they have over 1 million troops, apparently, in uniform. We don't know how well trained they are. They've got a lot of artillery pieces, artillery guns, and they've got quite a lot of tanks. But all their military hardware is very old and dated. It's mainly old Soviet and Chinese kit. So no real match for modern Western tanks. We've seen quite a lot of this in Ukraine, where old Russian tanks come up against Western tanks, are completely annihilated. So what Kim Jong-un and North Korea has is quantity, but not quality. I think the US will try and play this down, keep it under wraps. They don't want to pour any more fuel on the fire. The big concern, of course, is that North Korea has become very closely aligned to the Russians recently. I mean, Putin has had to almost go on bended knee to Kim Jong-un for artillery ammunition. And Putin doesn't travel very far out of his armed dacha, his armed office in the Kremlin, but he did go all the way to North Korea to try and get some ammunition. So I think if if there was any way that that this might provoke a Russian involvement, then that would be of more concern. But I expect the White House will make some comment to try and pour a bit of water on this. But I think both sides know, both the North Koreans and the US know that actually Kim Jong-un, if there was some sort of conflict between the US and the North Koreans, it would be over pretty quickly, and the North Koreans would be vanquished fairly easily, I would expect.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
With the elections coming up in North America this year, there is a concern all over the world, and people are trying to get into a position of advantage. Now, Kim Jong-un did have a number of meetings with President Trump when he was president. There is concern around the world that Trump might well become the next president, and I expect Kim Jong-un would far prefer to see Trump in the White House than anybody else. So one would expect that Kim Jong-un will keep up this threatening rhetoric in the hope that if Trump does come into power, the Americans will look more kindly to the North Koreans. And of course, North Korea is a very, very poor country. They seem to spend, or Kim Jong-un, who is this autocratic leader, seems to spend most of North Koreans' money, and they're a small economy. They don't generate much, but what they do, he seems to spend on himself and armaments. His people are pretty much starving. He will continue this stance of provoking and poking the US, and then hoping with Trump in power, Trump would appease the North Koreans and give Kim Jong-un more status in the world and perhaps some aid and elsewhere. So expect this certainly until the elections in North America take place and are concluded. The leaders of NATO, and hopefully including the US, should focus on Ukraine, because if Ukraine goes wrong, that could create a war in Europe, and to a lesser degree, the expansion of conflict in the Middle East, I think, is unlikely to create a East-West conflict. So although lots of the rhetoric coming out of North Korea is concerning and frightening people around the world, they should take it, really as I've described it, as being mainly a hot air and hopeful rhetoric, whereas we should really focus on what's happening in Europe and Ukraine, because that is the one that could have the most impact, particularly in this country.